You know that moment when you look at the viewfinder or your phone screen and you're like, I look good today. And then you look into the mirror and you're like, no. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do something very fun. Today I'm going to do the Racing to Read book tag created by the Reading Rush duo. I will link the original video with the questions down below. But before we begin, as always, links to petitions, donation and all useful links will be in the description. Please check them out before watching this video and then come back. Okay, so this tag has kind of a racing theme, so it fits with the title. So the first question is Warm Up, a book that stretches your mind, which was kind of a weird prompt, but at the end I thought of these two books by the same author. You may know them because this is The Elegance of the Hedgehog and this is Gourmet Rhapsody by Muriel Barberi. When you hear people say that an author is a poet that writes in prose, this is what they're talking about. There's also a third book that she wrote here. I don't remember the title, but I read that and that was truly like super dense poetry written into prose. It was kind of but c'è una coccinella. Voglio farle una foto, ma sto usando il telefono. C'è una coccinella. Can you see it? Can you? Okay, so very briefly, The Elegance of the Hedgehog talks about many characters in an apartment building in Paris where very rich people live. The story follows Renée, the concierge, who everybody believes to be not very much cultured, but she loves art, she loves music, she loves philosophy. And then there is Paloma, who is 12 years old and she's a genius, but she has decided that on her 13th birthday she's going to end her life. And they discover that they are very similar people when an old Japanese very wealthy man transfers into the building. Gourmet Rhapsody talks about a very famous food critic who lives in the same apartment building and he is dying and he is trying to find the flavor with a capital F in his last moments, this flavor that he knows but he can't remember what it was. So through food you follow all his life from childhood to maturity. All these two books and the third one makes you think so much. I love them so much. They are not for everybody. It takes some time to understand the writing because it's very flowery, very poetic, but I think that they're perfect for this tag. Okay, next, Start Line, a book you started but never finished. And that, unfortunately, is going to be Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This book I bought the first time that my library had expanded and had added an English section, so this book is in English. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this book, I'm going to buy it. And I had a pretty advanced level of English at the time and I thought, oh, this is going to be the book for me. But I read 10 pages and none of the words were sticking to my brain. I was like, is this even English? And I was so discouraged because this was one of the first like more adult like books in English that I've tried, so I should probably get around to read this and, you know, just to see if it was like just my brain not comprehended it, or this book is about a very mysterious boarding school where students attend and they are completely cut off from the outside world, and the story begins when some of the students eventually graduate from this boarding school. So it's very mysterious, actually kind of interesting, so I will probably get around to reading it. Let me know if you loved it and if you recommend it. Okay, next, Sprint, a book you read really quickly. I have kind of, not a controversial, but a kind of weird answer to this, and this is going to be Armada by Ernest Cline. I have two copies, both in English. I bought this and the dust jacket is in another city because it was a beautiful edition. It had like the blueprint of a spaceship in the inside jacket. And then I bought this because I wanted to reread it, and I was going to be on a plane for 12 hours. Apparently nobody loved this book aside from me. I like flew through it. This is a very long book. It's like 500 pages book. I read it in a day, and I enjoyed myself so much reading it because I believe that this is what it is. When I love things, I hyperfixate on them. So teeny tiny details sticks to my mind, and those things that in real life have no purpose, I love. And the author filled this book with as much pop culture reference as he could. And that's exactly how I like enjoy my media, like tiny details of pop culture that I love. So apparently it was the perfect book for me, but not for everybody else. This book talks about a young kid who is like a super sci-fi and video games fan, and then there is an alien invasion and he's recruited by the government to pilot a spaceship because apparently the controls of the spaceships are very, very similar to a very popular video game that they played. The protagonist is exactly like me. I would have loved to be on an adventure like this. Okay, next, Marathon, your favorite long book. Now, I've talked about my favorite book of all time. I haven't got it with me, but it's The Grey House by Marion Petrosian. I'm going to, up here, put a card of the video in which I talk about it. But then, I have a trilogy for you because all three books are very, very long. Oh my god. This is La Scacchiera Nera by Mickey Monticelli. This is the sequel, L'Ombra del Guerriero, and this is the final book, Il Maestro degli Inganni. They are all three over 550 pages, so almost 600 pages book, which you wouldn't tell by this one, but it has Bible pages. This, unfortunately, I believe this hasn't been translated in English yet, but it's one of my favorite Italian books of all time. These books follow three young kids, and they get into possession of an octagonal chessboard. And as soon as they touch it, they get transported into this parallel world where there is a very, very brutal war. And they discover that they have traded places with some pieces of the chessboard. And they find themselves on opposing teams on the war. And their mission is to keep mankind from being destroyed. I loved it. It was written so well. Mickey Monticelli is a masterful writer when writing wars and deception and political schemes. It was so great. Okay, next, finishing line. A book you were proud to finish. I've already talked about this book because it's massive. This is Earthy by Ursula K. Le Guin. I'm going to link the video in which I talk about this book here or here because I've already explained the plot, so you can just watch my other video and maybe, I don't know, comment. It'd be really nice. This is an epic fantasy book and it's so massive, and it's because these are 5 books in one. And I was so proud of myself when I finally finished it because this was my first long book when I was very little. I believe I was 12 when I read this. Probably I was a little bit too young, but I enjoyed myself all the way through, aside from the last 2 books, which were boring. Next, Gold Medal, best book you read during a readathon. Now, I have done many alone readathon, so I would create readathon for myself because I was not on booktube or on book tutor, so I was just doing like self-made readathons, which was so fun. And one of the books that I've read during these self-made readathons is La Sirène et la Licorne by Erin Mosta. This, unfortunately, I believe it's a French-only book, but for once, look at a beautiful cover. Look at it, it's beautiful. This was a cover buy for me, but it was so cute. This is a sapphic romance. It was perfect. This talks about two very different young girls. One is called Lily, and she's really into special effect makeup, and she wants to work in the movies, like horror movies. And one is called Chris, and she was like a sailor champion. She really likes swimming. She's super like the sea, and they form this beautiful friendship that blooms into a beautiful romance. And it was so beautiful to read, even though it was in French, which I kind of struggle with written French because I have to kind of read it aloud in my mind. But it was so beautiful. If you know French, if you want to like read something in French, if you want to improve your French, this book. Now, for the last question is Participation Ribbon, an underrated book you wish got more attention. And ma'am, which one? I only read underrated books because I basically only read translated books or Italian books. So for book 2, they are all underrated. But I'm going to recommend one of my favorite book of all times. This is Hive by Mark Walden, and I've lost the dust jacket. I am so sad. This is the Italian edition translated into High School Criminal. Hive stands for Higher Institution of Villainous Education. So this story follows multiple perspectives, but the main one is Otto Malpens, who is a genius orphan, and he doesn't want his orphanage to get shut down. So he manages to trick the most powerful man of the country to not close down his orphanage. And so he gets kidnapped for this and brought into this mysterious island where there is this school where they train young men and women to become the new elite of society so they can control the governments of all countries. And you cannot leave. Nobody can leave this island. But Otto Malpens wants to go back to his orphanage because all of his friends are there. So he really wants to leave. And since he's a genius, he befriends many wonderful and wacky characters who are also clever, and all together they begin to scheme and to organize a plan to escape. I recommend this so much. This is an originally English book, so you can find it in English. The last book, we've been waiting for so long for the last book in this series. It's kind of a Patrick Rothfuss situation, and I'm hopeful. But also, Mark Walden, excuse me, the last book, please. I need to know what happens. So, we've finally arrived at the end of this tag. Leave all your thoughts down below because I love to hear your comments. I love to. So if you enjoyed this video, or if you didn't enjoy it, just leave your thoughts down below. I don't have an intro, I don't really have an outro. I have some socials that I will link down below because apparently I should tell you that. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!